There's a strange paradox buried beneath the ruins of the ancient world. The civilization that mastered money long before Rome left almost no voice behind. No surviving books. No preserved chronicles. Only clues, etched in bronze, carved in stone, whispered through archaeology. Yet their fingerprints are everywhere. Roman politics, Roman architecture, Roman engineering, Roman finance, all of it carries the silent imprint of a people who understood wealth, not as treasure, but as infrastructure, networks, and systems. This is the story of the Etruscans, the lost civilization that built economic power while Rome was still a village of mud huts. And the greatest irony? Rome didn't just conquer them. Rome became them. Travel back 2,700 years. Italy is not yet Italy. It is a patchwork of tribes, farmers, and wandering shepherds. But in the hills of Tuscany, something unusual emerges. Cities, planned with precision. Roads, straight, elevated, and paved. Drainage systems, advanced enough to rival later Roman designs. Mercantile districts, connected to the Mediterranean through flourishing trade routes. These were the Etruscans, and unlike their neighbors, they were not obsessed with kings or conquest. They were obsessed with value. Where others hoarded gold, the Etruscans built wealth into the physical world. Ports that pulled ships from Greece and Phoenicia, mines of iron, copper, tin, and silver, metalworking factories that produced tools, weapons, and luxury goods, agricultural systems that fed distant markets. Their economy didn't rely on plunder. It relied on production. And while other civilizations fought wars for land, the Etruscans built something far more dangerous, a network. Cities like Veii, Tarquinia, Volsci, and Chiusi weren't isolated. They were interconnected, bound by shared language, shared religion, shared trade, and shared wealth. Together, they formed one of the earliest economic federations in European history. Long before Rome minted coins, the Etruscans used bronze bars, es rude, and later es signatum, as standardized units of value. But this wasn't just currency. It was a financial system because the weight was regulated, the production was centralized, the value was tied to metal supply, the distribution connected cities through trade. They treated bronze like modern nations treat oil. The more they mined, traded, and standardized it, the more power they gained. Their families, large clan-based corporate entities, managed land, mining operations, and trade deals like early conglomerates. And their society was built on intergenerational wealth strategy. Property stayed within families, inheritance preserved capital, marriages merged economic empires, elites shared political and financial interests. They pioneered a principle Rome would later perfect. Power survives when wealth is structured, not scattered. By the 600s BCE, the Etruscans weren't just wealthy, they were powerful. They built monumental temples Rome later copied. They constructed stone archways Rome later improved. They drained marshes through engineering Rome later claimed. They shaped religious rituals Rome later canonized. And in a twist of fate, Etruscan kings ruled Rome before Rome ever ruled them. The last three Roman kings, Tarquinius Priscus, Servius Tullius, and Tarquinius Superbus, were Etruscan. Under their reign, Rome developed its first walls. Rome built its first major temple. Rome built the Cloaca Maxima, one of the world's earliest sewage systems. Rome adopted Etruscan military structure. Rome organized economic classes based on wealth, not birth. In other words, Rome's foundations were Etruscan. But Rome didn't stay a student for long. While the Etruscans focused on trade, technology, and wealth building, Rome focused on one thing: war. The Etruscans lacked unity. Each city was powerful on its own, but fragile together. Rome saw the opportunity. One by one, Etruscan cities fell. Veii fought for 10 long years before collapsing. Tarquinia submitted after negotiations. Volsci was defeated and absorbed. Clusium lost independence, then influence. By 264 BCE, the last Etruscan stronghold bowed to Roman expansion. But Rome did something unusual. It didn't destroy Etruscan systems. It adopted them. Mining operations became Roman. Trade routes became Roman. Port infrastructure became Roman. Engineering designs became Roman. Financial tools became Roman. In conquering the Etruscans, Rome inherited an entire economic superstructure. It was as if a startup absorbed a multinational corporation overnight. Rome now had a financial engine, a trade network, a technological foundation, a cultural identity, a ruling framework, all built by a civilization that barely left a written record. The brilliance of Etruscan economics lies in three pillars. 1. Wealth is infrastructure, not treasure. They invested in roads, canals, ports, workshops, mining complexes, agricultural estates. These created self-sustaining economic ecosystems. 2. Wealth is family strategy. They built interlinked family networks that shared land, merged economic assets, protected inheritance, formed political alliances. This created stability across generations, something modern dynasties still emulate. 3. Wealth is trade power. They controlled essential metals. Civilizations dependent on bronze and iron had no choice but to trade with them. This made Etruscan wealth resilient, untied to a single ruler or military victory. Even today, echoes of the Etruscans remain. When nations build infrastructure to grow economies, Etruscan logic lives. When family corporations preserve wealth across centuries, Etruscan methods endure. When modern states leverage resource control for power, the Etruscan blueprint repeats. Their disappearance teaches a sobering lesson. Economic genius is not enough. A civilization that masters money must also master unity, or someone else will master them. The Etruscans didn't write history books. They built the systems that history would rely on. They didn't conquer the world. They created the framework for the civilization that did. They didn't leave a clear legacy. They left foundations buried deep beneath Roman triumphs and modern assumptions. The Etruscans mastered money before Rome, and Rome mastered the world because of them. Their story is a reminder. Sometimes the civilizations that disappear never really vanish. They simply reshape the world from the shadows. But the story doesn't end with Rome absorbing the Etruscans. Because the true measure of a civilization is not how long it lasts, but how deeply it shapes the world that comes after it. And the Etruscans shaped far more than most people realize. When Rome conquered the Etruscan cities, it didn't erase them. It absorbed them. Etruscan engineers were hired to build Rome's earliest aqueducts. Etruscan craftsmen became the backbone of Roman weapon production. Etruscan merchants integrated their trade routes into Roman economy. Etruscan priests influenced Roman religious rituals and political ceremonies. In fact, the word person itself, persona, referring to the masked facial identity worn in ancient theater, is Etruscan. So, is the Roman practice of taking the auspices, reading signs from the heavens before political decisions? So are the fasces, the bundle of rods symbolizing authority, later adopted by European governments and even modern democracies. These weren't random borrowings. Rome inherited the tools of the Etruscan world. Economic tools, political tools, religious tools, architectural tools, engineering tools. Rome didn't innovate from nothing. Rome innovated from absorption. For centuries, historians credited Rome alone for building complex road systems, organizing economic classes, creating banking-like networks, optimizing metal industries, expanding maritime trade. But archaeological evidence shows that Etruscans pioneered these decades, sometimes centuries, earlier. Their mining sites show industrial-scale organization. Their ports contain the earliest standardized warehouses in Europe. Their cities reveal careful zoning of commercial and residential districts. Their weights and bronze standards show consistent economic rules across regions. And their metal industries? They were so advanced that ancient Greek writers accused the Etruscans of alchemy. They didn't make gold from nothing. They made wealth from systems. Systems Rome used to build an empire. Unlike other great civilizations, the Etruscans didn't fall in a single dramatic collapse. There was no catastrophic war, no plague, no starvation, no economic implosion. Instead, their downfall was a slow political erosion. The Greek colonies in southern Italy competed for dominance. The early Romans grew stronger and hungrier for land. Internal tensions made it hard for Etruscan cities to unite. This is their greatest tragedy. They built networks of wealth, but not networks of alliance. And Rome, rising, aggressive, and unified, used this weakness like a weapon. The Etruscan economy didn't fail. Their political coordination did. They were overtaken not because they lacked innovation, but because they lacked unity. Even today, modern economists and historians recognize the Etruscan influence as foundational to European development. Here's the modern blueprint they left behind. 1. Wealth must be systematic, not accidental. Infrastructure, industry, and intercity networks matter more than treasure. 2. Wealth must be preserved across generations. They pioneered structured inheritance, long-term land ownership, and family-based capital. 3. Wealth must be backed by production. Their economy was built on metal, agriculture, manufacturing, and trade, not on plunder. 4. Wealth must be culturally reinforced. Religion, rituals, and civic identity supported their economic practices. 5. Wealth must adapt to geography. Their cities were placed strategically along trade routes, rivers, and resource zones. These principles didn't die. Rome used them. The Renaissance Florentines used them. Modern capitalist systems still use them. The Etruscans were an early prototype of a networked capitalist civilization. For nearly 1,000 years after their disappearance, people misunderstood the Etruscans. Greek historians dismissed them as pirates. Roman writers mocked them as decadent. Medieval scholars forgot them entirely. Their language went undeciphered. Their books vanished. Their political structures disappeared. The Etruscans became a ghost civilization. But archaeology brought them back. Every new excavation has rewritten the old narrative. Finely planned urban grids, sophisticated metallurgy, monumental tombs with painted frescoes, imported goods from across the Mediterranean, DNA evidence showing diverse ancient origins, artifacts proving long-distance trade networks, early banking-like tools of standardized bronze. The puzzle pieces now reveal something astonishing. The Etruscans were among the earliest economic masterminds in Europe, but they lived in a world that rarely rewarded the builder over the conqueror. Civilizations usually fall for dramatic reasons. The Etruscans fell because they expected stability to protect them. But Rome taught the world a brutal lesson. Systems alone cannot ensure survival. Someone must protect them. And yet, if you look closely, Etruscan influence is everywhere. In Roman law, in Renaissance banking, in European infrastructure, in global inheritance systems, in the idea that wealth must be engineered, in the practice of turning resources into power. The Etruscans vanished from maps, but they quietly entered the foundations of civilizations that followed. Their story is not one of defeat, but of absorption, a civilization so advanced that conquering it wasn't enough. Rome had to become it, and that is why the Etruscans remain one of history's greatest paradoxes. A forgotten civilization that shaped the world more powerfully than many who are remembered.